Episode 6. Here we are. How's the crack, Chloe?
G'day, Tizzy. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, that's good. I'm good.
You look really different. It doesn't look like you.
I'm shiny today. I've got a bit of gloss on the cheeks, so you'll have to jump on the YouTube page if you want to see that.
Yeah. Episode 6.
Here we are. So we are sort of jumping out of the book a little here and following on from a question from last week. If you didn't listen to episode 5, please go back and have a listen, because Unprepared Me doesn't have the question anymore.
The question was, my mum, it was from Ashley, and her mum thought maybe wrapping her 6-month-old baby was causing her baby to have developmental delays, like maybe rolling or crawling or... it wasn't. It was a question from the support group. So we just thought we'd talk about that area.
Yes.
For a bit.
Yes. And I personally just wanted to start this topic with a precursor, because I know that my opinion aligns with Tizzy here, but myself included, with Sid and Otto, hopefully different with this baby, didn't follow this advice with Sid and Otto, and I'd say 90% of mums out there haven't and perhaps won't. And that's okay. And
some people, when you say didn't follow the advice, what are you talking about?
The advice or our opinions that we're about to share now, which I believe are the same as one another, are different. And
different to the advice you're given by the maternal health
nurse? I suppose so, yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah, to a degree. So we're about to talk about tummy time, sitting baby up, etc., and the correlation with those and gross motor development.
Can I just say that we were Googling a little while ago trying to work out what the advice is, because Zoe was saying to me, I think we need a little disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast because we think we're doing the wrong thing, but then we couldn't really find, like, are we going to be giving incorrect information or correct information? We couldn't, or different information, but we couldn't actually find who says you have to do X, Y, and Z. Right. And we were on the Royal Children's website. So happy, as with all of these podcasts, if you are a physio or a child paediatrician and you feel that you need to give a different opinion to what we've given, come on and give it. Yeah. So this podcast today is us talking really as mums, not me as a professional. And, you know, we're just chatting as mums about a subject that we thought we'd jump into and have a bit of a different podcast, especially for people who know the book inside out. So that's where we are.
That's where we are, yeah. So, Tizzy,
so the original question.
Yeah, what's your answer to the question?
Well, so wrapping really will not delay your child's developmental, because sleep is the most important building block when it comes to children and their brain development. They need to sleep in order to be able to develop their brain properly. And they need their brain to develop in order to be able to learn to roll, learn to crawl, use their hands and so on. So the wrapping is not going to, or if it did stop them from rolling in bed sooner, that's a good thing because you're saving their life. But it's not going to delay their development because the sleep is going to outweigh it. The amount of sleep they get being wrapped is going to outweigh any slim, tiny chance that maybe it's delaying them in some way, which I do not believe it is.
No.
But
and there's no evidence or research to support that it is that we could find.
And with wrapping, you have to remember it's very, very dangerous to wrap a baby over 8 weeks in a wrap with a zip down the front. So if you've got a wrap that's got arms in and a zip down the front where the babies can actually lift their hands up to close to their shoulders in the wrap, very, very, very dangerous, and stop using one immediately if your baby is 8 weeks or over. With the Save Our Sleep wrap, it really only wraps the arms and sort of above the waist. So it's got loads of hip movement, and our sleeping bags our sleeping bag for that age group is bell-shaped to promote hip movement. So wrapping with the Save Our Sleep bedding is not in any way going to delay that. However, what is going to change your child's development, and is really, really interesting, and if you Google Tizzy Hall crawling, you'll find a YouTube video I did just on this subject. So I was fascinated with, people often told me that my babies were like really well behaved and really good, and why didn't they demand my attention and stuff, and why they were so good at playing with each other. People always commented on why my children were so good at playing with each other and didn't fight. And I think a lot of it comes to the way you parent. I'm a working mum, but I'm a working hands-on mum. Yes, we had a beautiful nanny, lovely nanny called Michaela, who now has her own children. She helped with the kids, but I was always there as well. And a lot of the time I was working and the kids would be in the room and I was a breastfeeding mum till Killian and Kieran were nearly 2. Dara obviously went, as we discussed before, went to formula earlier, but I was a very hands-on mum, and I would have my children on a mat behind me while I was working. And an example of, I think, why they don't fight is because they were left to it. Like when we were children, our mums weren't there watching us and helping us play. Okay. And it's so, I love it when I can go for a walk with a child or a toddler, and I'm so much better with other people's children than my own children. Like when we were camping and I wasn't trying to work as well, and I was with kids and I had other little toddlers hanging out with me, I give them time, and I love, and I do think I'm better with other kids, but I love just giving them time where they can stop and they can look at grass, or they can look at the rock on the ground, and we're not in a hurry and we're not trying to go anywhere, you know. And like children could play with a speck of carpet on the ground for hours if you let them, but we don't. Nowadays, we're constantly shoving toys in front of them and shoving things in front of them. And what used to happen with my children was, in the olden days, like my mum's children, they'd put them down on the ground and go and do jobs. So I tried to do the same with my kids. So, and it tried to make me feel guilt-free. I'd put them down, and when I put them down, for example, Kieran would be on the playmat, Killian would be on the playmat playing, and he'd see Dara with a toy. Dara would stop playing with the toy. Killian would crawl over to the toy and get it. And just as he got to it, and he wouldn't even crawl, he'd just like maybe pull himself or roll or stretch. And just as he'd get to the toy, Dara would come and take it. And then he'd have to find somewhere else to get or go or do. Now, in my household, I was working, and I would work and watch at the same time. In other households, I've seen where the mum would go over and say, "No, Dara, Killian," even in my household, we're not perfect. Nathan would do it. "No, Dara, give that toy back to Killian. Killian was playing with that." Well, I didn't do that. And there's a lot of research to say that second children, which may have now changed, were always did better in life because they had to survive. Okay. And going back to like this original question, I was fascinated with how children develop and why it's changed. So years ago, kids used to lie on their back, then they'd start rolling, then they'd start crawling. Now, if you can picture a child crawling, and they'd go to lift themselves up on their hands and their arms at the front, and as they go to lift themselves up, they'd suddenly find themselves sitting, and they'd be like, oh, I'm sitting, and then they'd fall over. And then they'd be like, how did I do that? And then they'd be down on the ground again, and they'd be trying to crawl again, and then they'd accidentally push up too far in their hands, and they'd be sitting and be like, oh, I'm sitting. And so they used to lie, roll, crawl, sit, stand, cruise, walk. And lots of children were crawling by 6 months old. But now we sit our children so much. So they lie, and then they get bored-lying and they make a noise. So we sit them in a bumbo chair, or we sit them in a high chair. We sit them in a pram. We prop them up with cushions. We prop them up on the sofa. We prop them up with iPads. And they don't need to crawl because they can see the world because we're sitting them up. So that it's actually changing. So kids are going from lying to sitting. And people now say, oh, is your child sitting up? And it's like, and this nonsense of they've got to sit up before they can eat solids. Well, so what did our parents do? Because children didn't used to sit till they were 9 months old.
So and they were eating solids at 3 months as well in many cases. It's
silly nonsense. But so now they lie, sit, we sit them, and then a lot of them will stand, cruise and walk. And a lot of them are losing the crawling. And the crawling is so important. They've said that children who crawl, some researchers say that children who crawl for longer are more intelligent.
Wow.
Anyhow, what did you find out? And what have you got to add?
Look, as soon as I read it one day about not sitting your baby up. It was such a big light bulb moment. If you really consider a baby that's been sat, and just imagine being that baby, and you are absolutely anchored there. You can't move from that spot, except for to maybe fall backwards on your head, which is really horrible. And I just think that we are missing something in the evolutionarily, or our innate desire to learn and move and do all these things naturally. We're missing that natural progression. And from what I've read, I'd like to try with this baby to not even do tummy time. So I would like to see my baby.
There's my confession.
Learn.
I never did tummy time.
Wow, didn't you? See,
No. So you continue, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
It doesn't surprise me because you just align so much with some of this modern research that I'm looking at. So a baby laying on their back, they're going to first start to, roll from side to side, and then they'll eventually learn that they can flip to their tummy, and they're going to naturally use the correct muscles and processes that they're designed or made to use in the order that they're designed or made to use them in. And I think that they're learning so much more than gross motor skills. So they're learning independence and patience, perseverance, self-motivation and satisfaction. I think the list goes on, and for at such a young age to learn those important things about self, surely that's the most amazing gift that we can give our child. Such an early, oh wow, I kept doing this, and
on a
I've done it.
totally different subject, but the same subject but different subject. And my children are older now, right? But I'm just thinking about it from a child's point of view, but I'm just going forward 7 years. So we were in Wye River, Big Four Caravan Park, loved it. They had a rock climbing wall. Ivy is amazing. She could climb anything. Mm-hmm. So this rock climbing wall arrived. Ivy is much smaller than Kieran. Everybody thinks she's Kieran's younger sister, but she's actually obviously older. She's 10, he's 7. Up the top of the wall. But Killian didn't even attempt it because he wouldn't be able to do it perfectly. And if he can't do it perfectly, he won't do it. He won't attempt to do it. He just stood back, can't do it perfectly, won't do it, don't know how to, not even going to try. Dara eventually did it when his friends arrived. He's much older. Kieran tried. He got up. Oh, I thought he was going to get upset. He got a third of the way up. He tried again, third of the way up. I actually called him aside and I said to him, Kieran, this is a true story. I wasn't trying to make him feel better. Yep. I said, I think Ivy's got the advantage because she was on the flat and you were on a bend. And I think you were trying to get round a bend. I said, I think queue up and do it again later when the line's gone down a bit. Because we know, we've been to the park so many times, everyone queues at 10 o'clock and then by 11 o'clock there's hardly anyone in the line. You know? Anyway, I was sitting we'd all moved on, the day had gone on, whatever, I don't know what we'd done. And I was actually sitting inside working at my computer, which I do when I'm on holidays, believe it or not, in the caravan. I did do a video, showed where my office was, and I suddenly had this, I just want to go and check where Kieran is in the line. And I got out there and he was doing it. He was doing the wall and he was up the top. And I think when you got up to the top, you got to press a horn.
Cool.
And he had achieved it and he was so happy. And I had such thank God I came out of the right tent at the right moment, mummy moment. But I'm thinking back to when he was a baby, imagine the achievement of trying to get to that toy and getting there without parents constantly picking the toys up and shoving it in your face.
That's right.
And then you end up not liking the toy that mum thinks you like, that they keep shoving in your face. But talking of tummy time, I do have to say that there's a Tizzy Hall roly-poly koala is the best ever tummy time toy. And I will share a video. There is a video of a little baby with it.
I know someone that wants one of those for their baby.
Love it. Any baby who's unhappy doing tummy time, the Tizzy Hall roly-poly koala. It's not an ad for my product. I just love this product. I find products around the world that I absolutely love and I bring to you. And every single person I've brought it to. And it's funny because I had a cockatoo similar in the range and I didn't like it. And then it's kind of disappeared. And then it actually ended up having a recall. It was I cursed it because I didn't like it. But the roly-poly, it wasn't our brand, it's another brand, but I find these products and endorse them. But the roly-poly koala is amazing. But can we talk about tummy time for a minute? Because I can't work out why we're telling parents that they have to do tummy time, right? So I was told you have to do tummy time, but I don't know why I didn't do it. I think I didn't do it because I wanted to do an experiment on my own children and see if I could get them to lie, roll, crawl, sit and do
Yes.
it that way.
Yep.
And tummy time doesn't really come into that.
Yeah.
So, but I think I believed until today, till we started researching this, that you had to do tummy time to help stop flat head syndrome.
Yep.
But then I thought, well, flat head syndrome, what is it? And do you correct it for cosmetic purposes?
Yep.
Or do you correct it? So there's we didn't really get the answer on Google. Some people were saying that I found a woman saying that you had to correct it for brain development and
Yeah.
it causes delays and stuff. But then Zoe said, no, don't read me any more of that. Go to the Royal Children's Hospital website. I want their facts. And we went there and they basically said it's more for cosmetic in most cases. So in some cases,
Yes.
you do need to correct the flathead syndrome for...
Which you absolutely
Yes.
should alert your maternal child health nurse
if you see your hat getting
yeah.
flat. But
yeah.
But then my children went to bed and slept better than any other children because they were Tizzy Hall's children. So I worked. I think, do you know, dads often tell me, and especially two dad families, and especially we have a lot of dads who find out about us because they're very, very sadly, the mum may have passed away from breast cancer, which happens a lot.
Yeah, okay.
Not a lot, but it does happen
much.
too much when mums have new babies or they find out when they're pregnant. And they have breast cancer. And these dads just get the book, follow the book, do the book exactly, and their kids
They
sleep.
would,
and I
wouldn't they?
think a working mum
Yes.
does the same.
Yeah.
Because I get my kids, put them in, this is the time the book says to put them to bed, even though apparently I didn't follow the book, put them to bed, and then I get them up. And what they do in that time is their choice. Like if they decide to go, they don't cry, like my kids didn't cry, but if they decide to lie and coo and caw, I never had video cameras, I don't like it. You mentioned that your children slept so much better at my house. And so many people, Ada and Alison had twins. That's funny, they had twins as
Yes,
well. And they came and stayed with us. I'm sure it was them who stayed with us. And their kids slept perfectly. But whenever anywhere else they didn't, I think it's to do with electric currents and stuff. I don't like it. I don't like all this electricity.
Yeah.
And I worry about having monitors and cameras in your baby's rooms and watching the baby. So we didn't do that. So my kids were really good sleepers and they were in their cots on their backs. But I'm not saying that not all kids will get this flat head syndrome. Maybe the mattresses are too hard.
But what you're trying to say is that your kids probably slept and
More.
spent a lot more time on their back than the vast
Yeah.
majority of other kids. And do they or did they ever have flat heads?
No, they didn't.
So
and
they're
is it our
point.
mattresses? Are our
Yeah.
mattresses
Yeah.
firm but not too firm? Like firm to pass the safe hand test, but not too... I mean, our mattresses, we know they're cigarette smoke free, which is a real bonus, but could it be to do with the flat head syndrome? I wonder. That's a really good point. But yeah, so so you would expect my children to have got flat head, which they didn't. I'm not saying that that's
Don't
do
know
or don't.
why. Yeah.
So tummy time is really, really important according to your maternal child health nurses. I guess what we're saying is if you don't do it, don't be really upset with yourself about it. Try and do it. Do it as much as you can. But there's also
There's some evidence showing it's okay
Not
if you
to.
choose not to.
Yeah.
And I've just made this note because it's one of my favouriteest quotes regarding raising children, and it came to me when you were talking about your boys being left to their own devices to work things out for themselves. And the quote is, "Be careful what you teach your child. It might get in the way of what they're trying to learn."
yes.
And it is, and I know what you're saying about how easy and well behaved in inverted commas your kids are, because as soon as I took a step back and just let the boys sort things out on their own, I think there's a new thing called lazy parenting.
It's good.
And I think that they're realising it's a bit good. And if you step back and play with them a bit less, always be present, but don't shove the toys, don't pick the thing up for them, don't roll their bodies for them. If you let your children figure that out, and in particular with their siblings, because Sid and Otto don't fight with each other either. I don't know how or why. They're two boys, they're four. They do not fight with each other because they've learnt how to how to figure that out on their own without me
Can I
coming
tell
in
you
and saying,
something?
no, don't do that, because maybe it was right that a 4-year-old does that. I don't know.
So there used to be a teacher at our school's kid, Mr. D. I loved him. He was so fantastic. And he's moved on, left the school, taken a totally different change. He was like the head teacher of the junior school. And a couple of things about him, actually, and some of this got to do with crawling, has just come back to me about crawling as well. But I used to love finding stuff and sending him stuff. And we used to have this nature play, and he always used to chat to me in the playground about what should we get and how should we get it. And we got all these crates from what's it called, the winery, the cider place near my house, Flying Brick.
Yep.
We got all these crates from Flying Brick, and he was worried because some of the parents had complained that their kids were getting their arms stuck in the crate. So the kids were putting their arms in sideways, and then they were turning their arms to the side, and then they couldn't get their hand out. And he was getting a lot of complaints from the parents, and I was like, and he was asking me my opinion, and I was going, just tell the parents that's what they've got to learn. You put your hand in one way, and but I loved chatting with him about research. Now, one of the things, remind me to tell you about the crawling with him in a minute, but one of the things was he told me about this article he'd found, and it was about second and third siblings, and we were talking about fighting, and he said to me how he'd read it. I loved this article, so he sent it to me. So he sent me this article. Now, what I took from the article was that we need to allow the children to fight in the playground because it's setting them up for how they're going to respond in the pub. Okay, it was really interesting. And it was like how if Dara and Killian are playing in the playground and then my children, siblings, are playing in the playground, or if they're in the playground with other children and they have a fight, let them work it out themselves because they need to learn these skills so that when they become adults and they're in the pub. So what I took from this was a friend came to visit with her child, Adele. And Dara and Adele have been best friends for ages. Right? Ages. Now, Nathan's a much more hands-on, interfere, sort the kids out, and I'm a lazy parent because I'm busy working. And we're working or lazy, they've got to sort it out themselves. We're living in the warehouse upstairs. You go up the stairs of the warehouse. One side was the girls and the shop and the warehouse and everything, and the other side was the stairways to upstairs where we lived, okay? And Nathan's come home to discover, I have read this article to Adele's mum. She's a speech pathologist. She loved it. I loved it. We were now watching what was going to happen with the children. Okay, so Dara and Adele are besties. Killian has interfered, and Adele and Killian are playing. Okay, they're playing, right? Dara has got really upset and come over, and he's really upset, and he's trying to get Adele to play with him, so he's hit Killian. Now, under normal circumstances, I probably would have interfered because there was another parent there, and I didn't. We were sitting, so the mother and I were sitting on the ground in front of a tumble dryer and a washing machine, watching. And there's screaming. The kids are screaming. They've had a fight. Dara's hit Killian. Everyone's crying. Nathan's come in and gone, who's looking after the children? Because he can hear all this crying. And we've said, shh, come here, sit down. And we've sat him down. So now the three of us are sitting watching. The kids are crying. Dara has walked off and sulked. Next thing, Dara doesn't really like Lego. Dara has gone off and found his birthday presents and found this Lego set that Killian had been asking Dara for months to do, okay? Dara's walked up with the Lego set, said to Killian, hey, Killian, do you want to build my Lego set? And Killian, 5 minutes ago, they were screaming, and they probably still would have been crying if we'd helped them, you know?
Yes.
And saying, he did this, he did that, he did it, okay? And Killian goes, oh, yeah, may I? And Dara goes, yes. And he handed Killian the Lego set. Yeah. Killian walks off with the Lego set, and then Dara says to Adele, do you want to go outside and play go-karts?
Yeah.
And off they walk. Now, I thought that means that when they're older in a pub, imagine if Dara walked into a pub and, here's a word that you won't know, and Killian is shifting Adele. Or a different girl.
Right.
Do you know what shifting is?
Cutting their
Apparently,
grass,
the French call it French kissing, the English call it snogging, the Irish call it shifting,
what do
tongue
Aussies
kissing.
call it?
What do Aussies call it? Getting it on?
Pashing?
I don't know. Pashing. Okay, anyway. So Dara would walk in, see them together, And instead of him walking up and boxing them, he'd find a way to distract Killian. Like,
That's
this
so
is all
good way to think.
learning.
It is.
And why are we not letting our kids learn in the playground? Now, if you go to a kinder playground, even the teachers, you go to a kinder playground, even the teachers will interfere. Like, not all of them, but some teachers will interfere with the children in the playground. Now, talking of the playground and Mr. D, let me really quickly tell you this story.
Yes.
Right? So, what happened was, we were in the playground standing chatting to Mr. D. No, I was standing chatting to some mums, and Kieran was there. Kieran was a baby, okay? So in our school, we've got a few ovals. You've got middle school up at up behind one oval. Then you've got junior school. It used to be junior school down behind the other oval, and there's like kind of one or two ovals in the middle, okay? There's a playground which can see the ovals. I'm at the playground Friday afternoon chatting to parents. Mr. D comes over and he says to me, "Oh, have you lost someone?" And he very happily pointed to Kieran, who was now halfway across the oval crawling, okay? And I said, "No." And he went, "Well, look, Kieran's the whole way up there." And I said, "I know." And he goes, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Nothing. It's his job as my child to keep an eye on me and make sure he doesn't get lost. If I go after him, I'm teaching him he can go because I'm going to always be watching him and always go after him." And Mr. D goes, "Oh, this sounds like an interesting Tizzy philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay and watch this one." And he's like, I think he's kind of thinking to himself, that baby's never coming back. You know. So then what happens next is a man appears at the other side of the oval with a dog. And you see Kieran and he like turns around and looks back and he realises how far he's gone. And then he looks at the man and the dog again, and then he looks back at us, and then he looks at the man and the dog, and then he turns and he starts trying to crawl back really fast. And he gets probably, I don't know, a small distance, and he collapses. Both legs out from under him, both arms out from under him, and he starts crying. And I turned to Mr. D and I said, "Now it's time for me to be his mum." And I said, "I'm coming, Kieran, I'm coming."
Yeah.
And I ran and I picked him up and I gave him a big cuddle and I said, "You got very far away from Mummy. That wasn't very clever, was it? You know?
Yeah.
Come on, let's go back and find the boys."
Yeah.
And one day we were standing in a supermarket and one of Nathan's friends said, we were standing there, the kid was the same age as Kieran, and they were, only one of them could chat to us. It was a new shopping centre that just opened. And one of them was constantly running after the child, and only one of them could chat to us. And our Kieran was standing there next to us going, "Come on, Mum and Dad, stop talking, come on." Like, he wasn't saying that, but he was probably thinking it. And he said, "How do you do that? How do you get him to stand next to you?" And we go, "Well, he knows. It's his job to keep an eye on us. If he runs off, he'll get lost."
Yeah.
And it is one of the things I've always taught my children. Always know where Mum and Dad are, because we might not always know where you know, always. And dogs, like with a dog, if you've got a dog and it's running, run in the opposite direction and it comes after you. Don't keep running because it keeps running.
Yep.
Because dogs and children will stay a certain distance. A baby knows to stay a certain distance away from its mum and dad.
Until they get away and they see you chase after them. That's when they learn.
And then the other thing, which is in my toddler book, is let them get lost.
Yes.
If you've got a child that keeps running away or keeps disappearing, let them get lost. Hide. You hide and watch them. They need to get that, "Oh no, I've lost Mum and Dad," in order to know not to run away. Anyway, we're a bit off subject. Where do we need to be?
Can I bring you back to the very first, your very first comment, I think, about this topic. And you were saying about a swaddled baby and the connection between them crawling early or late or what have you. You started saying that when they're swaddled, they're going to sleep better. We know that, swaddled and warm. And then made me think about episode 3 when you were saying about a baby that crawls down, a certain set of stairs in your home, when they learn to walk again.
Yes.
And are you going to say that we need that sleep for the developmental, because we create those pathways during sleep?
Yes.
Is that?
But the other thing we were saying about that is, so if a baby's crawling, so if you've got a house, so let's picture you've got a house. you've got this house, you've got a living area, and you've got 3 steps down to the kitchen or 3 steps down to the dining room or 3 steps out to the front door, something where the kid's going to see it all the time, yeah? You've got a child who's crawling. Now, I teach you to teach your children to turn around, go down the steps backwards, okay?
I do that.
So turn around, go down backwards, turn around. It's in the toddler book.
Yep.
The toddler book is not for toddlers. The toddler book you need from 9 months. As soon as your child's on the move, depending on whether you do our type of parenting, which is they'll learn to crawl faster because we're going to do the line, rolling, crawling, not the line sitting. They'll crawl faster. You need the toddler book as soon as they're on the move. Now, in the toddler book, I explain about turning around backwards and so on. So you've got this child and they're crawling. They come to the steps, they turn around, they go down it backwards. Got the child crawling, come to the steps, turn around, go down it backwards. When that child learns to walk, their brain doesn't recognize that the steps are there. It's really bizarre. They fall down those 3 steps, and it's not because they're not balanced and they're this. It's because they actually have to relearn the whole space. It's really weird. It's someone else do research in it and come on the show and talk to us about it. They have to learn that again. And the other thing, one thing about kids learning to walk is a lot of children who learn how to walk get really upset in the bath because the bath's slippy. And then they try to stand up and they keep slipping over. And if you put like shoes on them, like a little croc or a jelly shoe in the bath, they stop being upset because they feel that they can
We've
stand.
actually tried that ourselves, or maybe put the seats
But
back
the whole
in when
crawling
boys
is
start.
amazing.
It is, yeah. And I hope that our listeners have got a bit of something out of that discussion.